Tonight, attention passengers.
I think it just gives Air Canada more planes.
The second big shakeup in a week. What's going on with Canada's airline industry?
What we know is that taking the treatment will not help.
Is Canada's most prescribed medicine overprescribed? A new study suggests it is.
I think it'll just be a moment of relief.
And Christine Sinclair heading towards a world record. We talk to Canada's soccer superstar. This is The National. Heads up, if you're about to book a plane ticket, another big shift could be coming to Canada's airline industry, the second in just a few days. Air Canada is in exclusive talks to buy Air Transat. So what is going on and what does it mean for you, the passengers? We'll tackle it all, starting with reaction in Quebec, where, as Alison Northcott explains, both companies have deep roots.
It's not a done deal, but some travelers in Montreal are already reacting to news that Air Canada could buy competitor Air Transat.
I think it just gives Air Canada more planes to fly more people.
My only worry, she says, is that Air Transat's service will become as rotten as Air Canada's. In a news release, Air Canada called the potential deal a made-in-Quebec solution to maintain high-quality head office jobs and key functions in Montreal. It says the deal would be worth about $520 million.
It's a lot of emotion for me because, of course, I was there for the first flight of Air Transat with all employees crying of joy.
Air Transat has been a Quebec company since it started more than 30 years ago, co-founded by now Premier François Legault.
Of course, being bought by our competitor at the time, it's not easy to accept, but the good news is that Air Canada has an headquarters in Montreal.
Still, there are a lot of questions about how the deal would play out.
Air Canada could operate Air Transat as a separate entity and leave it alone. And Air Transat would basically operate as a separate carrier. The other scenario is you fold the whole thing into Air Canada, and the Air Transat airline brand disappears.
Either way, he says, while it may be good for shareholders, it would mean less competition for consumers and possibly some job losses.
By merging two companies together like that, they're afraid of redundancies and if there would be any cuts or anything like that. So the main priority for us, the IAM, is job security, making sure that all our members keep their jobs and their benefits.
The airlines have given themselves 30 days to negotiate a deal, but even if they come to one, it could still face regulatory hurdles, including from the Competition Bureau. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
And all of this raises a lot of questions for flyers about what could change if this merger happens. Points, destinations, and that all-important ticket price. Aaron Collins takes a look.
It's no secret what motivates most Canadians when they're shopping for a flight, especially when the airline they land on is Air Transat.
Cheap and cheerful, easy because it flies to Gatwick rather than Heathrow.
It was the cheapest option and had the best times available for when I wanted to travel.
Because it's cheaper and it goes into Gatwick, which is a smaller airport.
Cheaper and easier. Air Transat flies to around 60 destinations in more than 25 countries. Analysts say those routes aren't likely to change much if this merger actually happens. But what about ticket prices?
I think we've just got increasing concentration of ownership, and I think we'll end up paying even more in the future.
Experts say she's likely right, but not because of this deal. Rising fuel costs and interest rates are to blame, and that will affect all airlines. Of course, service is also important to some passengers.
Where are you off to today?
I'm flying to Toronto.
Now, I see you got this amazing badge around your neck. What is that all about?
Well, it's part of the kids club, and you get different rewards. Like if you're flying to any place, you get a free snack at the beginning and at the end, and just all the cool stuff.
Those in the know say Air Transat's service isn't likely to change much either, but there are some key differences between the airlines. Air Canada uses Aeroplan points. Air Transat, air miles, and it's not clear how that might play out for passengers. Also, experts say the two airlines are chasing different customers at their core.
In some ways, they serve different markets. I mean, the people who are flying in Air Transat are leisure travelers, and they have different needs and also much more flexibility in when they want to go.
And if this merger does go through, we'll see if the two airlines continue to operate separately, meaning even Air Transat's logo could stay the same. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
So on Monday, we were talking about WestJet being bought by Onyx. Now it's Air Canada and Air Transat. So what is happening in this country's airline industry? Obviously, for questions like that, we turn to senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong. Let's begin with today's news. Why is Air Canada interested in Air Transat?
Well, and here's where I try to take a bow and tie them all up into one nice story, that Air Canada is worried about WestJet now, right? That the status quo was fine so long as WestJet remained a low-cost carrier, stayed at West, and didn't stomp on anybody's turf out here. But once Onyx and Jerry Schwartz came in and bought it up for billions of dollars, Air Canada now sees that as a real threat. So it needed to bulk up. What better bulking up than Air Transat? Because not only do you get their destinations, their planes, their infrastructure, but you get all their customers too. And then we went through their books and found not only is this a company that has zero long-term debt, it has $620 million in cash in hand, basically money in the bank. So it's like buying a house for $1 million and finding 1.2 million in the basement. So it's a good strategic buy, and it's a good sort of economic buy as well.
Okay, so aside from that, though, what does this tell us about the airline industry in Canada in particular? I mean, so in 1 week, you have two huge purchases or potential purchases.
That it's a lot healthier than it used to be. I mean, use the story of Air Canada. Bankruptcy protection in 2004, almost went under during the 2008-9 financial crisis, knew it needed to get its act together. So it made long-term labor deals, it got its act together, it made sure that it cut costs in both good times and bad, so it was able to better weather the boom and bust nature of the industry. And good thing it did, because now you've got Jerry Schwartz and his deep pockets and WestJet coming at you. It's going to be a really interesting year for the Canadian airline industry to see just kind of how this now plays out.
Okay, Peter Armstrong, thanks very much.
You bet.
And so, Rosie, let's have a look now at a serious, pretty alarming step taken by China in proceedings against two Canadians detained since December.
Yeah, they're still there, Adrian, and Chinese officials have now formally arrested Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig on accusations that they obtained state secrets. Under Chinese law, authorities can hold people for up to 6 months, meaning they had until June 10th to arrest the men formally. Global Affairs says Canadian consular officials have made regular visits to the pair, and they'll keep doing it. Spavor is a businessman, and Kovrig works for a non-governmental organization. As Katie Simpson explains, though, with this latest move, the men's fate may be sealed even before they go to trial.
For more than 150 days, these two Canadians have been held in a Chinese jail with little exposure to anyone other than their interrogators and a monthly visit by Canadian officials. Michael Kovrig is coping as well as one would expect, according to his boss.
He's doing what he can to keep his mind focused and not to be driven to despair or to anything like it.
The formal arrests are making the dispute between Ottawa and Beijing worse. China has recently sentenced 2 other Canadians to death and stopped buying large quantities of canola. It's widely seen as retaliation for the arrest of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou at the request of the U.S.
The Chinese government is not following the same kinds of rules and principles that the large majority of democracies follow.
We know there are tensions between our two national governments. It is my belief and hope that that will be resolved soon.
Nova Scotia's premier quietly flew to China this week to meet the governor of Guangdong province in the hopes of keeping Canadian seafood exports out of this spat. Sources say when Stephen McNeil raised the dispute, his counterpart defended Huawei, saying it is a company that follows the rules.
He expressed obviously the frustration of Canada being caught between Donald Trump, President Trump, and the Chinese government. I think the sooner that we can deal with this issue, the better off for all of us.
McNeil is the first Canadian leader invited to China since the dispute started. Federal politicians, including the agriculture minister, haven't been able to get that kind of FaceTime, nor have their calls and letters been seriously addressed.
We should say publicly that we will no longer pursue a free trade agreement with China.
Ottawa is being urged to take bold steps to get Beijing's attention, especially now that the legal process against the detained Canadians is moving forward.
Once you are formally accused in the Chinese system, you are found guilty in 99.9% of the cases.
And Katie Simpson joins us from Parliament Hill. All right, Katie, how is it that the Premier of Nova Scotia can get an invite to China when federal ministers are having a hard time just getting anybody on the phone?
This was Stephen McNeil's 7th trip to China, so he's developed a number of relationships with senior officials. China buys a lot of lobster and is Nova Scotia's second largest trading partner. And the provincial governor that Stephen McNeil met with is so senior that before any Canadian delegation could travel there, top officials in Beijing would have had to have signed off. So perhaps people in Ottawa may want to lean into those ties to try and get some FaceTime. Rosie.
Okay. Katie, thanks for your reporting on this tonight. In Paris today, Justin Trudeau addressed a tech conference, and there he said he will stand up to social media giants.
The platforms are failing their users. They have to step up in a major way to counter disinformation. And if they don't, we will hold them to account, and there will be meaningful financial consequences.
The Prime Minister said the government will introduce a new digital charter to counter online hate speech and electoral interference. More details are expected at an Ottawa conference that will happen later this month. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Andrew Scheer signaled his economic priorities today. It was his latest speech aimed at telling voters just how he would govern as Prime Minister. Scheer warned a downturn, an economic one, is inevitable. Here's Olivia Stefanovich on what he's proposing.
Canadians can limit the damage by choosing a Conservative government this October.
The new path that Conservative leader Andrew Scheer wants to chart for Canada zeroes in on the energy economy and how to unleash it.
We have what most countries could only dream of: a booming labor market, world-leading clean technology, and a rich abundance of a finite resource that the world demands. And under Trudeau, we're squandering it.
Scheer's plan to reap the benefits, cancel the carbon tax, clear the way for pipelines, and create one coast-to-coast route for energy projects.
We could have a single corridor, planned up front and in full consultation with the provinces and with Indigenous Canadians who would share in the prosperity that it would provide.
The goal, make Canada energy independent by 2030, while lowering greenhouse gas emissions, an economic proposal that's being sharply dismissed by Scheer's opponents.
Let's not reinvent the wheel here and think that you're creating a plan for Canada.
I just don't know how high the tolerance is for a dramatic increase in pipelines of any kind going into the next 5, 10, 15 years.
The strategy is short on specifics, but Scheer was detailed when it came to slamming the Trudeau government.
Another 4 years of his runaway spending, and we will have an economic crisis on our hands.
Well, it's an absurd statement.
Finance Minister Bill Morneau says more Canadians are better off now than they were 4 years ago.
Andrew Scheer has no credible approach to dealing with the economy, and what's quite clear to me is that he actually doesn't understand the numbers that are underlying our economic success.
The numbers show Canada has one of the lowest unemployment rates in history, and economic growth is as good or better than in other G7 countries. Still, Scheer insists Canadians are not getting ahead, and he's banking on that frustration come election time. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Here's another sign an election may be around the corner. The Green Party also laid out some policy today around climate change. It would double Canada's current target for cutting greenhouse gas emissions and stop the growth of the oil patch.
It means no new fossil fuel wells opened up, no fracking, no new sources of fossil fuels. But as we move off fossil fuels, we should only be using Canadian fossil fuels till 2050.
The party supports new pipelines, it says, but only for refined products like gasoline, propane, and diesel, and not for diluted bitumen. The plan has not been costed out yet, but May said it will be, quote, fiscally responsible and help reduce deficits. So that's all good, pretty good timing for an at-issue night. It always works out for us. Andrew, Chantal, Chris Hall are all here. We will take a look at all four parties' four plans for the environment and energy coming up a little later in the show. Some other stories we are following tonight, including the Liberals holding on for another term in Newfoundland and Labrador, but as a minority government.
It is a great honor to be the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. I see more opportunities and I see challenges when as a group that we work together.
Dwight Ball will lead only the second minority government in the province's history. His party went into the election with 27 seats, but only held on to 20. The NDP are celebrating after finishing with 3 seats. That's its second most ever. And the PCs took 15. 2 went to independents. A report into BC's legislature's spending scandal has found Clerk Craig James did engage in misconduct, including the purchase of expensive suits and claims for reimbursement of his life insurance premiums. Later in the day, James announced his immediate retirement. He was suspended last November alongside Sergeant-at-Arms Gary Lenz, but today's report found Lenz's behavior did not constitute misconduct.
The report shredded my reputation. It was done in such a public way. It was harmful.
A police investigation and an audit are still ongoing. The final cost for fixing and replacing the troubled Phoenix pay system for Canadian public servants could be as high as $2.6 billion. That's according to a report from the Parliamentary Budget Office. It says the high cost is explained by the need to fix the data in the current system before moving to a new one.
That would be a bunch of garbage that you put into a new system, so that would be garbage in, garbage out, as the same as we have now.
Okay, the system has overpaid, underpaid, or not paid at all tens of thousands of public servants since launching in 2016. 5 companies are now vying for the contract to replace it.
It would be hard to blame Christine Sinclair for chasing a little personal glory. After all, she is on the cusp of a goal no soccer player has ever reached. But as the CBC's Devin Haru found out today, her focus is on her team as Canada heads to France next month.
She's getting ready for a fifth trip to the World Cup, but you won't see any let up when Christine Sinclair practices. An intensity that helps explain why the 35-year-old is one of the game's most deadly scorers. For nearly 2 decades, she's been scoring
it is over. Brilliant!
At a staggering rate, 180 international goals, now setting her sights on breaking the record by women or men, 184 by American Abby Wambach.
It's not my focus now. It's all about prepping for the World Cup and helping this team reach its goals.
Humble to a fault, the Burnaby native just wants the hoopla to be over and for the focus to be on winning a first World Cup for Canada. But she's obviously thought about the record.
I think it'll just be a moment of relief, I'm not gonna lie. But just proud of what I've been able to accomplish and the longevity of my career and being able to have adapted with the game.
While Sinclair doesn't want to talk about it, her teammates and former coach do, and they are quick to remind her about how many goals she needs to break the record.
Every time she doesn't take a shot or she passes the ball, we're like, why'd you do that? I mean, we're excited for her. We're not wanting to add any pressure, but we know she can do it, and any way we can help in assisting that, we're going to do it.
You know, this young girl was able to grow into a legend and do something that is just remarkable. So I think she set the bar for another Canadian kid to go and break her record.
Exactly what Sinclair would want. The spotlight off her and on the next Canadian soccer greats. Devin Haru, CBC News, Toronto.
Up next, we'll look at new questions tonight about the most prescribed drug in Canada.
And we get our first glimpse of Mick Jagger after heart surgery. He's still got the moves, Adrian.
Of course he does. And later, how did the Big Bang Theory get so big?
Physics comes from the ancient Greek word physica. It's at this point that you'll want to start taking notes.
Was
great to see that jargon being used in everyday TV shows.
For hundreds of thousands of Canadians who suffer from a mildly underactive thyroid, a commonly prescribed drug may not be helping. Christine Birak now with new research and new advice.
Most people at this meeting are worried about their thyroid.
I would fall asleep at the office, which is not a good thing to happen, evidently, and I had put on about 12 kilos in about 6 months.
She thinks she might have hypothyroidism, meaning her thyroid gland is underproducing a hormone called thyroxine. It can affect things like heart and digestive function and calorie burning. The pill used to treat the imbalance, called levothyroxine or Synthroid, is the most prescribed drug in Canada. But after reviewing 21 clinical trials involving more than 2,100 patients, researchers say patients who have a mildly underactive thyroid or subclinical hypothyroidism should not take the drug.
From what we know, it's very likely it won't work.
A blood test can reveal whether medication might help. Patients with hypothyroidism show high levels of thyroid-stimulating hormone, and yet their thyroid isn't producing enough thyroxine and could use medication. Those with subclinical hypothyroidism also have high levels of thyroid-stimulating hormone, but normal levels of thyroxine. Studies show these patients don't benefit from the drug.
In absence of benefits, uncertainty about harms, and the burden of taking it, people should probably not start this medication, so we hope they follow the recommendation.
Doctors say sometimes patients ignore blood tests and continue pushing for hormone medications based on their symptoms alone.
Some of the symptoms that can be associated with hypothyroidism are very common as well, such as fatigue and constipation, maybe difficulty concentrating, cold intolerance, dry skin. All of these things can happen to people with no medical illness.
A lot of people didn't know that whether they had thyroid disease or not. So we do have people searching for answers of what's actually wrong with them.
There may be no easy answers, but researchers say patients shouldn't start taking a drug every day for the rest of their life. That doesn't help them. Christine Birak, CBC News, Kitchener, Ontario.
Up next on The National, At Issue looks at the race to come. We'll do that for 5 months now with the best climate plan for the campaign trail. Chantal, Andrew, and Chris Hall, all here after the break.
And a little later in our moment of the day, a very happy reunion for a Toronto couple.
Give me a paw. Yay, yeah. Good boy. It was so thrilling and so thankful. I can't say it enough that I'm just grateful to have him home again.
With the federal election 5 months away, all parties are sharpening their positions on the environment.
You should be worried about the cost that we are passing on to our kids, the cost of climate change. Yeah. We have got an emergency here.
The government just tabled a motion that would declare a national climate emergency, and the Greens want to see double the current greenhouse gas emission reduction targets.
Climate change is not, I want to repeat that, not an environmental issue. It's a massive security threat.
And getting their messaging out on the environment also means a plan for the energy industry and the economy.
A dedicated coast-to-coast right-of-way specifically set aside for energy infrastructure projects.
The future of energy in not just Canada but in the world has to be a future where we're not burning, we're not fracking, and we're not using fossil fuels.
So just how important are all these ideas to winning an election, and why does it seem to be so hard for parties to articulate and then keep their positions on the environment and energy? At Issue is here to help us dig into all that. Chantal Hébert is in Vancouver. Andrew Coyne also in Vancouver tonight. And Chris Hall is here with me in Ottawa. Good to see everybody. It did seem to just coincidentally happen that everybody was sort of talking about various positions around climate change or energy today. And I guess that's sort of part of to digging into the narrative around the election a little bit more. But I want to start with Andrew Scheer's proposal today. It was billed as an economic speech, but the big central part of it was this idea of an energy corridor that would run from west to east and that would somehow facilitate, I guess, these kinds of projects. Generally or specifically, Chantal, what did you make of that?
Well, it's an interesting concept, but in practice, there's no magic. You can't just by magic declare a corridor. It does not resolve some of the issues that have plagued the pipeline file and the environmental issues, assessment issues, but also the indigenous consultation that the courts have been fairly strict in enforcing. So I'm curious to see how you actually negotiate that. Take the Energy East pipeline, for instance, the defunct one. It was supposed to run literally very close to where most of the Quebec's population lives. That would be Laval and Montreal, major cities along the way, Quebec City. I'm not sure you can carve out a corridor in Quebec's major cities that easily just by saying, I declare this to be the corridor.
Yeah, and I think he also said in the speech that he would begin consultations by talking to Indigenous communities. That would be the first step. But I don't know, even if you start there, that means that that's an easier process. Andrew, what did you make of the idea?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can add too much to Chantal. You cannot get away from the obligations that are upon the government, both on the environmental and the Indigenous side of things, that are mandated by the courts, that are in the Constitution. I think everyone's looking for ways in which we can achieve greater certainty and greater streamlining of this so that we can have some sense of how long it will take to get through the process. It does seem like it can become kind of an endless game of leapfrog. I think there's creative things that can be done to try and do that, and obviously one can look at this corridor proposal, but on the surface it doesn't seem to simply, you can't just wave away those questions.
Yeah, well, obviously, Chris, we're still waiting for the climate plan from the Conservatives. There was, I guess, a hint of that today in the speech, this idea that somehow Canada would want to lower global emissions. I'm not clear. I will get clarity, I guess, around what that means. But how important is his climate plan to what he would have spoken about today, to trying to push forward an energy plan as well?
Well, if Andrew Scheer accomplished anything today, Rosie, he set the Conservatives clearly apart from the other three parties in saying that he believes Canada should become an energy superpower and self-sufficient by 2030. So on that score, he's alone. As part of this whole idea of a national transmission corridor, he's talking about hydro as being part of it. Pipelines would obviously be part of it. He didn't say anything about what it would cost, how he would get it through the process, how he would get provinces like Quebec in particular to sign on. But as an idea, it's interesting. It's certainly one worth debating. And as I said, he's managed to put the Conservatives clearly on the opposite side of the other three major parties.
So we also saw, though, this week, the Greens sort of pushing themselves even further down the road in terms of what they want for greenhouse gas emissions, increasing it substantively. And then Jagmeet Singh in this sort of strange position, which seemed to be a reaction to the BC by-election, where he declared he was not in favor of fracking, but then wouldn't come out against the LNG project in British Columbia, a project anyway, it was very confusing. So I guess, Chantal, why is it so hard for parties to not only articulate these positions around energy and the environment, but stick with them?
Okay, set aside the Liberals and the Conservatives. Why it's so hard is that they are trying to balance energy and climate change. That is not what the NDP or the Green Party are doing. And in the case of Jagmeet Singh, it's hard not to see his shift, and it is a shift, away from openly supporting the LNG project, which he did over his by-election campaign as a reaction to his loss of a seat to the Greens last week, and calls on the NDP to up its game on climate change. The problem with that is that when you're reacting very quickly to something that looks like it's only politically driven, your position and your standing and your credibility take more of a hit than the opposite, and that is what happened to Mr. Singh this week.
Andrew, is it just that simple and perhaps that cynical that that's what's happening here?
There is a sort of a bidding war going on here. The Greens have nothing to lose. They've got no particular base to satisfy other than environmentalists. So yeah, they can take the most extreme positions. The NDP does have blue-collar workers who would like to be building these pipelines as part of their base, so that is a constraint on them. But you can see how nervous they are given the strides the Greens have been making. And of course, you had the Liberals themselves being sucked into this, declaring, putting forward their own motion about there being a national climate emergency, which is fine to talk about, but in that case, they're open to accusations. Why are you taking such a leisurely time of it with basically Stephen Harper's targets, which themselves aren't going to get us closer to achieving the Paris commitments that we made? So the danger for the Liberals is until now, they've been the party that's been trying to say, look, we're balancing growth in the environment, we're balancing the energy and climate change. If they get moved off that, then they open the way for the Tories to say, well, we've got a plan for both of these things. All those plans are open to criticism, and we'll see, how real the Tory environmental plan is. Yeah. But the center of gravity for the public is that balancing act, and neither of the two mainstream parties, I think, can afford to get too far off that.
I was struck, Rosie, watching the debates on two motions. Which one had a greater urgency around their emergency debate about the climate change emergency over the last 2 days in Ottawa? It was truly something. But I would say on Jagmeet Singh, I appreciate the circumstance he finds himself in. The Green Party support is especially strong on Vancouver Island and in and around the Lower Mainland. Those are places where the NDP have seats and need to hold them. To have the Greens nibbling away at them, and they did very well in 2015 in some of those ridings, including Victoria, which is now a vacant seat. The NDP incumbent, Murray Rankin's not running again. They got a third of the vote. So I can see why he responded the way he did, but it was very, very narrow casting to a set of seats the NDP wants to hold, as opposed to, as Andrew pointed out, talking more broadly to blue-collar workers, to people who are in the trades who might see these projects as a way of getting jobs and guaranteeing some prosperity for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it does also see, that reads to me like the NDP is abandoning any move to the center. Any idea that they would take other progressive votes.
But the centre, in the terms of the progressive votes that Thomas Mulcair and Jack Layton were hoping to get them to government, has left the NDP before the NDP left the centre. And at this point, this is a save the furniture operation. Yes, it's narrowly focused. It should play well in Quebec, on the other hand. And at this point, I think you can clearly see that the NDP is struggling not to be in contention for government, as it was in the last election, but to hold on enough seats to retain official party status in the House of Commons and not let the Greens become the so-called green conscience of the House of Commons.
Just a quick go-around on sort of where the government itself sits on these issues, because it's struggling with a whole bunch of things at the same time. The tanker ban bill, C-48, that the Senate voted against, I don't think it's going to die. C-69, that's the rehash of the NEB, the National Energy Board, so how projects will go forward. We're waiting on a decision on the pipeline. I mean, they are, Chris, maybe I'll start with you on this. They are really trying very hard to play all those cards at the same time, and I don't know how well it's working. What do you think?
They're running out of time, clearly with C-48 in particular, because it may have to go back to the House of Commons if it can't get through a third reading vote in the Senate, which would overturn that committee's refusal to support it. I'd also point out what's really interesting for the government is that the Governor of the Bank of Canada has added climate change now to household debt as one of the issues that lends to greater fiscal instability and concerns about the economics of the country. So if you are really looking for some kind of support to get that mesh together of the environment and the importance of continuing with some of these energy projects, it's going to be a little more difficult to do that when even the Bank of Canada says we have to be very careful about how much greenhouse gas emissions we continue to put into the environment.
Andrew?
You've got two things here. You've got reality and you've got politics. Reality is climate change is a serious issue. The evidence accumulates by the week. Canada has obligations to contribute to that. Carbon pricing is by far the most efficient way of achieving our goals in that regard. The political reality is the public is not necessarily sold on all of that, particularly if it's going to cost them any money, and the public generally wants something done. So the danger for the Liberals who have been trying to maintain this straddle is, can the Conservatives get in and do they have a balancing act that's closer to where the public is at? I'm not passing judgment on it as policy, but if the public is satisfied with some kind of regulatory scheme that the Tories can call their plan, do the Tories find the more sweet spot in terms of where the public is at? And that's the real concern at this point for the Liberals.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it before.
The Liberals are different from the other three party in the sense that the NDP, the Greens, and the Conservatives can come up with plans. But the Liberals have been in power for almost 4 years. They need to come up with a record. And for that, they need the legislation. They need a clear position on where the Trans Mountain file is going. They need the carbon pricing in place. And I think the time to judge all of that is once Parliament adjourns to see if they achieve all these goals. By the way, is there a hard and fast rule that says Parliament must bail out by July 1st? Because Brian Mulroney, when he wanted something, and he was running out of time, just kept the house sitting.
Okay, so I'll have to look at my holiday plans, I guess. Thanks, Chantal. But it is, I'll just end on this, Andrew. It does seem, as Chris said, that they are running out of time to do something that is very hard, and that's balance the environment with the economy. That line that Justin Trudeau has used so frequently.
Yeah, and can we just add also, it's outrageous that a Senate committee or the Senate would be able to block this. This is legislation that, whatever you think of it, was passed by a Democratic House. If the Senate either stops it or stalls it long enough that it runs out of time, that amounts to the same thing as a veto. And as a matter of democratic government, that's just outrageous, whatever your position on the bill itself.
See, if you give him one more go, he will always take one kick at the Senate. Okay, thanks everybody, appreciate it. Before we go, be sure to subscribe to At Issue, the podcast, for extra content. This week we're going to talk about some of the remaining issues around the Mark Norman case. You can look for it on iTunes, any major podcast app, our website, cbcnews.ca/The National.
All right, up next on The National, The Big Bang Theory wraps tonight. We look at how it defied expectations and became one of the most popular shows on television.
You're unbelievable.
I know.
I think that it just struck a nerve that wasn't there before.
Bazinga. First, though, a preview of the Sunday interview. This week is Valerie Jarrett, Barack Obama's senior White House advisor. They've known each other for decades, so what else would I ask her? What's your best Barack Obama story?
I have so many, but I couldn't tell you most of them. Now, you know what I say about him? Because people always ask me, obviously, because we're so close, what is it we don't know about the first couple? And I think part of their magic is they are so authentic. Yeah. I'm so grateful that she and then he walked into my life. They've changed my life for the good in countless ways. Not only have they given me opportunities to serve our country at the highest level, but their friendship. And on her darkest moments, and the same with him, there isn't a single time where I would see them where they didn't say, "How are you doing?" And that's friendship. Yeah. They could have gotten away with never saying, "How are you?" And they always like, "How's this for you? Are you okay?"
That's pretty supportive.
That chokes me up. I'm lucky to have them in my life.
That's an airplane. That's a military airplane in our building.
He's right, that is a military plane, actually an F-16 fighter which crashed through the roof of an industrial building in LA. It was returning to a nearby airbase this afternoon when it ran into trouble, the pilot ejecting, landing safely nearby. There had been worries the ordnance on the plane would explode, so the nearby highway was closed. And Boeing says it has finished updating the flight control software in its 737 MAX planes. That's a crucial step in getting them flying again. The fleet was grounded after crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia, both linked to an anti-stall system that was fed bad information by a single sensor. The changes will feature 2 sensors and less severe reactions to them. FAA representatives still need to go on an all-important certification flight. That hasn't yet been scheduled. And world-renowned architect I.M. Pei has died at the age of 102. He's perhaps best known for designing the Louvre's glass and metal pyramid in the 1980s, but he also designed the Bank of China Tower in Hong Kong, and he was chosen by Jackie Kennedy to design the John F. Kennedy Library and Museum in Boston. Now, one of the biggest and most hotly debated shows on television is about to end. HBO's Game of Thrones has delivered high drama, monsters, and monster ratings for 8 mostly acclaimed seasons. Tens of millions are expected to watch it all wrap up this Sunday night, but another TV juggernaut says farewell tonight. For 12 seasons, nerdy sitcom Big Bang Theory has delivered huge ratings, in part because it's uncomplicated, it's accessible, even old school. Our Deanna Sumanak-Johnson explains.
You're unbelievable.
I know.
Every man, he was not. But Sheldon Cooper always got the laughs.
Physics comes from the ancient Greek word physika. It's at this point that you'll want to start taking notes.
The Big Bang Theory mixed a comedy formula that almost looks quaint today. Live studio audience, characters who are co-workers and neighbors, and populated it with young, brilliant minds who lack street smarts. For the young scientific minds watching, it was the first time they saw their passions reflected on television.
I was still in high school, and it was great to see that jargon being used in everyday TV shows. And it actually almost helped learn the jargon more. It's like, oh, what's that word?
Howard, he was also an engineer who really wanted to become an astronaut. So for me, like, that aligned with me. I think among
many celebrity scientists liked the show too and made appearances, including Dr. Brian Greene, author of the string theory books like The Elegant Universe.
I've done, 7 hours of television documentaries. When I go out in the world and give a lecture, the 2 minutes that I was on The Big Bang Theory has had so much greater reach. So if you can get an audience to laugh about some of the more esoteric ideas of physics, that's a good thing.
The prize is Leonard.
Not everyone was a fan. The show was criticized for stereotyping some of its characters.
There it is, Priya. We're Indian. We believe this stuff.
You want me to put it back?
And in the early seasons, there were no female scientists on the show.
Even then, the women like Bernadette and Amy, they did a lot of general women's science, such as biology. A lot of women take biology.
No offense against biology.
No offense, but
biology is great.
At the same time, like, they could have had another female, like, physicist.
Still, they say they'll miss the show that put science smack in the middle of pop culture. And Big Bang's legacy goes beyond that. From Marvel comic-inspired movies to Game of Thrones, what was once geeky is now mainstream.
I think they were relatable. A lot of us like those things. A lot of young people like those things, and so I think that it just struck a nerve that wasn't there before.
Prepared a short video.
Allowing their nerd culture too.
Live long and prosper.
Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
You might want to lock the door behind me.
Next on The National, a stolen dog and a community that comes together on social media and a very happy ending. But first. In case you missed it, Mick Jagger's back in business. And in this new video he shared on social media, he's almost looking superhuman. Keep in mind, the 75-year-old Rolling Stones frontman, yes, I said 75, is recuperating from heart surgery. That was about a month ago, which pushed back the start date of the band's No Filter tour. Now, Jagger's using social media to keep fans up to date on his recovery. As you can see, it's impressive. The famously inexhaustible rock star seems to have the same energy he had way back when Pierre Trudeau was Prime Minister, or when the boys partied with Margaret Trudeau, or when he tried, with mixed results, to figure out what was cool in the 1980s, or when he rocked his way through the Clinton years, or when he starred in Martin Scorsese's 2006 love letter to the Rolling Stones, Shine a Light. Or when he, look, the point is, he's basically an evolutionary leap in human endurance. Sure glad you're feeling better, Mick. When Charlie was stolen outside a bookstore 2 days ago, an outraged community jumped into action. The Huskies' picture on telephone poles, volunteers knocking on neighborhood doors, a social media post that went viral. And it all worked, leading earlier today to a heartwarming reunion with his owners, and that is our moment.
Tuesday, as soon as it happened, it was all over social media. I came down on a mission. So many people bring their dogs down here, you never know. And as his luck would have it, there he was. I actually found him sitting right here.
Right here?
Yes, right here between the two posts.
Between these two posts?
Yeah. He was such a big boy. And I came over, I said, Charlie, and he put his head up. And then there was two fellows sitting on the rocks over there. And I said, is this your dog? And they mumbled something. I said, is this your dog? They just got up and they left.
She sent me a picture of him and I knew right away it was him. All my neighbors and everybody went so overboard. We could never imagine how the help that we had. Oh, it was so thrilling and so thankful. He gets us out of bed in the morning and he's just a great super dog.
There we go, Charlie. Okay.
Too much.
When we get you home, I'll give you supper.
So
how's that?
You'll be right. That's why they just.
so upsetting.
Okay, I love stories about good neighbors. I have questions for these thieves, though. I don't understand taking a pet, and I really don't understand then deciding to take the dog to a dog park. It just seems like a strange thing to do. Maybe explaining to do whenever they're found.
I know, it was sort of like a rent-a-pet situation or something. Carol, though, says she doesn't want anything bad to happen to the thieves. She just doesn't want to do it again. And Charlie, for his part, apparently has a very regimented food schedule, so he was going home for a really big dinner. That sounds about right.
Me too.
All right, let's go. That's the National for May 16th. Good night, everybody.
Good night.